My name is Reagan and I am a senior at Pike County Central High School. And the topic that I will be discussing today is grandparents' rights. Grandparents' rights is such a touchy subject to talk about because the laws are different for each state. In the state of Kentucky, the grandparents may be granted visitation if the courts determine that it is in the best interest of the child. Throughout the entirety of this speech, you will hear that phrase, the best interest of the child, repeated multiple times. At the end of the presentation, it is up to you to determine what that phrase means to you. I chose this picture because to me, it explains what grandparents' rights means to me. Grandchildren need grandparents too, and it has the picture of the grandchild holding the grandparents' hands. In the United States, grandparents are for some cases, grandparents are the sole caretaker of the child. Some children have little to no relationship with their biological parents and choose not to because their parents wanted nothing to do with them and because of their environments were not a good environment to have. There are two main types of custody. The first one that I will be talking about is physical custody. Physical custody is when a grandparent takes care of the child without a court order. Most situations are like this. When I was in middle school, I had a friend who lived with her grandmother while her mother was in and out of jail. Even after her mother finally got out of jail, she still chose to live with her grandmother because she felt that she had no connection with her mother and that her mother wanted nothing to do with her because she chose to do drugs and be a part of a bad situation over being a mother to her child. Physical custody is basically a long visit with grandma with no strings attached. You can drop off your child and have them stay there for a while and basically just leave them, and you don't have to help out. The biological parent does not have to help out, and the grandparent takes care of the child until the parent decides to clean their act up and to get their lives together, and they can come back and get the child whenever they want. Another form of custody is legal custody. Legal custody is when the grandparent is given the legal right to take care of the child. Normally, when a grandparent has legal custody, they are receiving some sort of welfare from the government, whether it is the GAP program, which is grandparents as parents, or food stamps. Depending on what type of situation it is, means how much money you will get. Depending on how many children you have or are taken care of, depends on whether you'll get the GAP program or the food stamps. If you have one child, more than likely you will receive grandparents as parents funding, which is you get one check for that child. It's basically child support from the government. When you receive food stamps, that means you're having one or more children in the home, and you are receiving government funding for food and food product. When I was younger, my sister lived with her grandparents, and I lived with my dad, and we had visitation with my sister whenever she lived with her grandmother. Her grandmother would come to my dad's house. We would visit for 1 to 2 hours a day, and she would go back to her grandma's house. And that shortly ended whenever my sister became old enough to say that she didn't want to live with her grandmother anymore and that she wanted to live with her mom. And now my sister and I, we go back and forth between our parents' house to see our dad. But depending on the situation, it's always in the best interest of the child, whether it would be legal custody or physical custody. In the state of Kentucky, we have more physical custody than we do legal custody because the grandparent just wants to make sure that the child is being taken care of. Physical custody is always looked at as a probational period for the parents, and basically saying you have this amount of time to get your act together and you can have your child back. With legal custody, once the grandparent has the legal custody of the child and the biological parent wants full custody back, they have to go in front of a judge stating why it is in the best interest of the child that they should get their custody back. In conclusion, no matter the circumstance, the grandparent should never have to be excluded from the child's life, but you always have to think about the best interest of the child. Thank you.